All right. It's the Boris Dirk podcast, and we are back. It is peak March Madness season. We're about to enter the Sweet 16 this upcoming weekend. Got some good prospect matchups. Drew and I are here to take you through some NBA draft talk, and also some news hit the timeline this morning, furthering the idea that the NBA is going to be expanding. There were a couple sort of rumblings that Seattle and Vegas would be getting teams, but now it seems like we're really going down the path towards that happening. So we wanted to start just because expansion gets thrown around a lot. There's a lot of debates about, do we have enough talent for it? Some people say we have way too much talent. Some people say we don't have enough. I wanted to look at who are the guys that would actually be filling out these expansion teams. So we're going to go through some of the more interesting protection cases in terms of who's going to be up for grabs for these expansion teams. But Drew, how you doing? You're on vacation.
I'm on vacation. My paid time off expires at the end of March, and I've been in these sort of dynamic work projects where I didn't get a chance to use my time more thoughtfully. So here I am cramming all my PTO days into the final week of March. I am a tourist in my own city. I have zero plans except for some competitive pickleball and hopefully some writing. Let's get to work.
Hell yeah. All right. So the rules with expansion have historically been, when they do the draft, that every team gets to protect 8 guys. In looking through the league, there's a lot of teams that only have about 8 guys that I would be interested in, but we could talk through some of the more interesting ones. And then the other rule is that the expansion team could only pick 1 player per team. So you can't just take like OKC's 12th through 15th guys as your expansion team, even though that would probably be the best strategy. With 2 expansion teams, I guess we'd probably say you get 2 per team. So I wanted to talk through.
You think the Wizards are like, can we protect 4?
Yeah.
Can we put a few more in the pool? I have one question before we move on here.
Yeah.
What is the contract protection situation? Like, what if the Wizards are like, actually Trae Young's been really annoying and we don't want to protect him? Who wants him?
I'm pretty sure you get the deal, because I was hearing that the Bobcats back in the day took a bunch of restricted free agents in the draft, and then they like sort of had to make decisions on them. So I think you get the contract that you draft from the expansion team.
So what I saw is that, yeah, formal expansion still needs another board of governors vote. I think it has to be 23 of 30. The working target is 28, 29. And expansion fees are going to be somewhere in the 7 to 10 billion range per team paid to the current owners. So I assume it's like the player option. I think the owners are going to opt into this one.
I think they're picking that one up. All right, let's start in the West. And we're not going to do every team, because some of them are like Sacramento is basically an expansion team already. I don't think we have to go through the 8 guys that they would protect.
That's the team.
The team to start with, because it's the most interesting one, is OKC. So we're not going to do this like 2 years out. We'll just pretend the expansion draft is happening tomorrow and they have to protect 8 guys. I think the obvious ones that they're protecting: Shea, J-Dub, Chet, AJ Mitchell, Cason Wallace. That's 5 already. Then I thought they would protect Hartenstein, Dort, and Jalen Williams as their other 3. Is there someone that you would put in and take one of those guys out as far as protecting?
Hardenstein. Wait, list the 8 for me.
Okay. So Shea, Chet, J-Dub, AJ Mitchell, Cason Wallace. I feel like those are their 5 best prospects long term. Then I said Hartenstein, Lou Dort, and big Jalen Williams as the other 3, just because he's played so well lately.
Yeah. I need to know what they're thinking of Nikola Topic at this point.
And Sorber.
But Topic specifically was a legitimate top 5 talent in that draft class. Where did they get him? 8? No, that was Dillingham. They got him at 4.
I feel like they got him like after the top 10.
Right. Exactly. It was at 12. That's why it was breaking my brain. But he was a legitimate top 5 talent in that draft a couple of years ago. And obviously, due to circumstances completely out of his control, his career has been stalled by maybe a couple of years now. But I have a feeling they'd still want to like ride his potential out, see what they can get out of a guy who hasn't really had a chance to grow in the league. but it's hard to argue with that. Even the ups and downs offensively with Lou Dort, like he is key to their DNA and he's part of the bedrock of this team. He's important in the playoffs. We've seen him make shots in the playoffs. It's not like he, is unplayable offensively. He's been in these big games and he's made, like do or die threes at the end of shot clocks. So I think your list is on point.
All right, so that would mean, and these are probably the best names that would be available in the expansion draft is whoever is left unprotected off OKC, but that would mean Thomas Sorber, former lottery pick who hasn't played yet, available, Topic available, Jared McCain, Aaron Wiggins.
New Kings starting lineup just dropped.
Yeah, and they wouldn't lose all these guys. They'd lose one or maybe two, depending on how the NBA chose the rules. But I'm bolding those guys when we come back to like who were the best players that were left. San Antonio, another interesting one. Wemby, obviously being protected. I feel like you might quibble with this one, but De'Aaron Fox being protected. Maybe they want to get off that contract, but I would say he's probably being protected. Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant. That's 5. That's kind of like their 5 best kind of long-term prospects. And Devin Vassell, that's 6. Keldon Johnson is 7. And then they would kind of be choosing between Champagnie, Luke Cornett, Harrison Barnes as the 8th guy they wanted to protect. I'd say Champagnie, but could see the argument for Cornett as well.
Yeah, Cornett is standing out to me just because even as durable as Wemby has been this year for his standards, like it's still so valuable to know you have that solidity behind him. And Cornett has just been so successfully a plug and play guy for them this year. Like I might go Cornett over Keldon, but Keldon's had an awesome year.
He's going to win 6th man of the year. He's the favorite right now.
I'm just thinking like long term because this team seems to have such a legitimate runway now. Your list is the list. I'm just trying to push back, but I will say they're probably keeping Carter Bryant before De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I think that in their mind,
so I can't disagree. I'm just changing your order.
Yeah, in their mind, I think their starting 5 a few years from now may very well be Harper, Castle, Vassell, Carter Bryant, and Wemby. Like that could very well be their closing 5 a few years from now. But we'll say Cornett and Barnes are unprotected, probably Cornett being the most appealing guy there. All right. The Lakers don't really have 8 guys, anyone beyond 8 that you'd be that interested in, unless a team still really likes Dalton Connect, but I think he would have been traded by now if that was the case. Denver, same thing. Beyond their core rotation piece, it's like Deron Holmes, Tim Hardaway Jr. Like you're taking swings on picks that maybe you liked that the other team has given up on. Timberwolves are really bleak past the top 8. They're kind of sneaky, a pretty shallow team right now. Maybe like Terrence Shannon could maybe be made available, or Bones Highland. The Rockets are somewhat interesting. Jayshawn Tate is someone who I've always been interested in, and he could be made available. Josh Okogie. Let me know if you want me to stop on any of these teams, but
I'm unmoved.
Okay. Suns, maybe they leave like Kaman Malawach, but probably not. I think obviously they feel pretty good about that. So you might be able to scoop up like a Royce O'Neal or someone like that, or Oso Ighodaro, depending on how many guys they want to protect from their young, kind of scrappy guys. Clippers, really pretty bleak past the past 8. Nick Batum, Isaiah Jackson, Kobe Sanders. The Blazers, and we're going to stop on this because you're a Blazers fan, actually pretty interesting. And I'm curious who your 8 would be to protect from the Trailblazers.
This is going to be hard because the whole problem with the Blazers is they've had a really decent like 5 through 9 for a while. But
yeah,
we'd trade one of those guys for an ideal like 4. So we're keeping Tumani, Denny, Scoot, Klingon. That's 4.
That's 4.
And after that, it's just complete chaos.
Yeah.
Like Robert Williams, I forget his contract situation at the moment.
I think he's expiring.
Yeah. He's so talented. He's still one of the best per minute bigs in the league. So depending on what their medical team thinks behind closed doors, I'd probably keep him.
Sharp?
Yeah, Sharp. Jeez, yeah, he's not on the depth chart right now because of his injury, so I miss him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep Shaden, even though I have major Shaden questions, and I continue to believe that like the raw stats don't always reflect winning contribution. Like he's too valuable, his ceiling's too high, so he's an automatic keep.
That's 6.
I would keep Drew. I don't care that he's not part of any sort of young core timeline. He has been indispensable to this team that's hovering around 500. They're 36 and 37, and Drew Holiday, even just with the injury, the long time away, has had a lot to do with it. And when he's been on the floor, I think has surprised a lot of people with the usage rate he's been able to handle for this young team. So
you got to keep
Drew
Dame
in there. Yeah, and we're keeping Dame.
That's 8.
Dame.
Okay,
I guess it's easier than I thought. I would dump Robert Williams and keep CD Sissoko, just out of love for my guy. And Young Hansen, enjoy Vegas, my guy.
So that leaves available Young, Jeremy Grant, and anyone else that's that interesting. Vic Krejci, Chris Murray.
Like Matisse Thybulle is still an incredible defensive playmaker. Dude comes in and he plays like 17 minutes for us and gets like 3 stocks, like clockwork. It's unbelievable. Yeah. His hands just find passing lanes. He gets balls. But he also has behaved like a guy who doesn't really want to be in Portland. So he's sort of been like wing Gary Payton Jr. for us, and it's pissed me off. And so Matisse, enjoy your time on a disappointing playoff team. Jeremy Grant, you've broken my heart. We gave you generational wealth and you chose fashion over basketball. Be gone.
All right. There's a couple interesting names in there. Warriors, no, just a really bleak situation past the first few guys on the roster. So we're not even going to go through them. The Mavericks, also fairly bleak. You can have like a Middleton or Klay Thompson maybe that would stay unprotected, which would be a really tough end to the Klay Thompson career if it's played on an expansion team. I hope that's not what happens. The Grizzlies are somewhat interesting. I don't know if you want to stop on them, mostly because they just have a lot of guys who they got so many people in the Jaren Jackson trade. That's like, do they protect Walter Clayton, Taylor Hendricks, Edie, Clark, Aldama? Like there's going to be
some... I can't help myself. If we're going to the Grizzlies, I continue to feel like I'd rather have Walter Clayton and Taylor Hendricks than Keontae George. I really do believe that. Walter Clayton has had some moments. I don't know who is going to be playing point guard when I turn on a Grizzlies game right now, because Ty Jerome came back. He's now hurt. Javon Small, who I actually really like. He's like a short but wide guard, and he's a bulldog. Cam Spencer, obviously on his night, has been awesome for them at times this year, and like looks like a second round steal. And then Meshack is like all defense, very little offense, but also a complete dog.
They honestly could leave John Morant unprotected. Like I think they're kind of done with that whole experience, and with his contract. Like clearly they tried to trade him for value at the deadline and couldn't. And I think if they could amnesty him, like if we brought back the amnesty provision, they would. So it would maybe alienate the fan base a little bit.
Let's see. They're definitely keeping Edie. They're definitely keeping
Coward.
And I would bet they're keeping Walter Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get him that early on a rookie contract and he's really talented. Mm-hmm. Aldama probably.
That's 4.
I don't even want to do this, dude. This is a team that is starting Omax Prosper at center right now.
Yeah,
we're both Omax guys, but he is a big forward. He might not be a wing, but he's definitely not a center. Taylor Hendricks has given them a lot of good minutes recently, actually. It's hard to know like what is a good minute and what is just someone getting a chance to be on the team that loses by 45. But I will say I like that they've got these bigger forwards getting a chance to kind of explore their offensive bags before this team tries to get competitive again.
Yeah,
which is going to take a while.
For Spice perspective, I'll say they leave John protected. Maybe in reality, it's more like Ty Jerome and Brandon Clark or something like that, but at least some rotation names.
Yeah. Cam Spencer's getting kept. He's had enough great nights, enough double-digit assist nights, and enough competitiveness. They want to build with him.
Wells is getting kept too. By the way, we're not doing draft talk yet, but whenever I'm like envisioning in my head, oh, what's the best environment that one of these prospects could go to? I feel like I always come back to Memphis because I'm like, they're extremely complement. Like Cedric Coward can play in any style with any other team. If he's a co-star or if he's like a really high level role player, he can just play with anyone. And then they have their 5 in Edie. And it's just like any other wing guard big who can stretch a little bit. I'm like, oh, if they were in Memphis, that would be exciting because they just need that kind of top level stud. All right. New Orleans is really depressing. If you're into Jordan Hawkins, you can do that. Sacramento, as I mentioned, basically an expansion team already. And then
don't get me started. Sacramento has introduced me to players I didn't know were in the NBA on a frequent basis.
The Jazz are somewhat interesting. This will be the last Western Conference team, and then we can go East, which is a little bit
more interesting.
Actually,
I got a couple East teams in mind.
The top ones at the East are interesting. Utah, let's do quickly. They just traded for Jaren. They're keeping him. Walker Kessler, they're keeping him. Markkanen, that's 3. Keontae George, they clearly believe in him a lot. That's 4. Ace Bailey's been on a good stretch lately. They're not going to leave him unprotected. That's 5.
Dude, I was an Ace hater last year, and I can't believe all the different ways that Ace Bailey is scoring right now with ease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's looked really good. So that's 5. Then between their last 3, some of the names available are Bryce Sensabaugh, who I still think is a really good scorer and could be like a Bojan Bogdanovic kind of into his career.
He's a ball don't stop legend.
He's the 24-0-0-0-0-0 stat line.
Sensabaugh might get 70 in a game.
He might. So Sensabaugh, I will preliminarily keep as number 6. Filipowski, actually, I honestly don't know how good of a year he's had. I know they were high on him after his rookie year, but I don't know if he's still in their long-term plans.
I think they'd keep him, and it's more about the options than Filipowski 2 years in.
Collier, maybe number 8.
Yeah, they're sticking with him.
Okay, so then that leaves available Cody Williams, John Conchar, Yusuf Nurkic as kind of the next 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuinely sad about losing Conchar. Like, he's just in that bucket of players that probably shouldn't be playing 25 minutes a night on an NBA team, but like any bench needs that guy. Conchar is a hustle machine. He's like a 6'4", 6'5" wing who somehow comes down with 50-50 rebounds that other guys his size have no shot at. The more I look at it, like they're keeping Cody. They're keeping Cody because he is theoretically a versatile, valuable wing who has some real growth potential on both ends of the floor.
Is he Collier getting let go then, or Filipowski?
Probably Filipowski. If they believe that Kessler is going to come back and be himself, which
it's a crowded front court.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right in the front court. And also, it's not like any one of Sensabaugh, Cody, Collier, outside of Keontae George, like none of those guards has really locked themselves into a long-term future in Utah. Yeah. So maybe you just spin the wheel on as many of them as you can because they all offer different talents and tools.
Yeah. All right. Filipowski then becomes one of the more intriguing names available, I think. All right, let's go East. Detroit, tough one. So Cade is a keeper, obviously. Duren, Asar Thompson, that's 3. Isaiah Stewart is 4. Locks. Then my next 4 were Tobias Harris, Ron Holland. Ron Holland's probably a lock also, like a 5th lock.
Complete lock.
I had Tobias Harris, Dennis Jenkins, and Paul Reed is my other 3. I don't know if you agree. The other names, Herder, Duncan Robinson, Javonte Green.
Yeah, Paul Reed is a toss-up. I really like him.
I like him too. Whenever like when Duren's out or Isaiah Stewart is serving a suspension, like Paul Reed comes in and just gets like 12 and 10 like every time.
Paul Reed is a daily fantasy monster. He has been racking up copious steals and blocks since his days at DePaul. and I think they probably like him. This is also a team that I think is in the market for a little bit more reinforcement in the front court, just because Paul Reed, for his talents, is more of a 4 than a 5. And there are definitely times like when Beef Stew was suspended longer than Duran, that Paul Reed is kind of stretched thin at the 5. He's just like a college 5, not an NBA 5. So I think you're on point there. Danis Jenkins, I just want to say, was the 60th guy on my board. It's the only time I've ever made a 60-man board. I went nuts a couple of years ago. And I had watched a few St. John's games, and I was just in love with his competitiveness, his attack mentality. But I kept looking at his stature and worrying that he was just going to be like a EuroLeague legend and not a legitimate NBA point guard. And at that point in the draft, maybe you just like take like a 3-and-D guy with size. Here we are. Danis Jenkins looks like he's going to be an amazing like 3rd, 4th guard in the NBA for a long time.
Yeah. All right. So that leaves available from Detroit Duncan Robinson, Kevin Huerter as probably and Karis LeVert as like the
Sasser.
Oh, and Sasser. Yeah.
Sasser's one of those guys, like came out of the gates quickly as a rookie, looked like he might have like some all-world dynamic shooting potential, and he's faded a little bit into the shadows in Detroit.
Yeah, if you're as you should be approaching the expansion draft as like a second draft, Sasser's a good guy to take a chance on. If for whatever reason you're trying to build a win now team, Duncan Robinson probably the most enticing piece.
Yeah, he's been a great pickup for them.
On to the Knicks, which could be my homer. I put the Knicks 2 because technically they're tied with Boston for the 2 seed. But they have the tiebreaker, so we're going to talk about them first. Could be the homer in me talking, but I found this exercise excruciating to figure out who the guy left.
We're eating Cat, right? We're eating him out of New York.
I'm going to do this assuming...
All right, no, let me do it. Let me do it, and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
Brunson, we keep. Josh Hart, we keep.
Yep.
Bridges, we keep. OG, we keep.
Yep.
That's 4. We have to keep Cat, unfortunately. This is why I'm not allowed to run NBA teams. Mitchell Robinson, depending on what our medical machines are telling us about the inside of his body, we're keeping.
He's not going anywhere. He's the biggest difference between regular season Knicks.
Oh, he's incredible. Games. He's also been particularly good of late. Like I feel like he had a really good stretch. Then he goes into these periods of like Mitch is questionable every game and he's not going to play. He's never going to play back-to-backs. And just recently, he's just been getting, he had a 20 rebound game the other night. He has had a lot of these like 8, 12, 2-and-2 games, just patented Mitch stocks.
He caught like 5. He caught like 5 lobs yesterday in the game against New Orleans, where like one of my like nitpicks with the Knicks is they never throw lobs to Mitch, and he's like by far one of the best lob threats in the league, but they just never look for it, and they finally looked for it yesterday. He got like 5.
He is in that Thibault category of just like havoc per minute superstars.
Yeah, you're at 6, I think.
Yeah,
Deuce has to be 7.
Diawara has to be kept.
That's the 8th. Deuce has to be in there too.
Yeah.
Like 7.
Deuce buried in the depth chart by his red O right now.
Yeah.
And then it's got to be Diawara, right? Like
that's what I'm talking about.
You're not oh my God! But then I'm breaking my own heart with Pacome.
I know. So it comes down to basically the Knicks have a very clear top 7, and then it comes down to you get to protect one of Landry Shamet, who has been really good for the Knicks this year, Tyler Kolek, who had moments but lately has been buried. Although
no to both for me.
Yeah, Dadier, if you still believe, Mo Diawara, who I think is the pick, and for those who have not been locked into March Knicks basketball, just an absolutely enticing blend of like 6'9", super long arms, like has the standing reach of most centers, not super bouncy, but pretty good looking 3-point shot, and
I never expect it to go in, and it goes in a lot.
Yeah, he's shooting, at least he was at 40%. I don't know where he's at right now, but he is the lottery ticket the Knicks have to like the out of nowhere starter level contributor that they just pick up off the scrap heap. Like none of Shamet, Kolek, Jordan Clarkson, Alvarado, even Dadier at this point are probably going to turn into that guy. Diawara is like if those are all like 500 to 1 to become legit starter level players, Diawara is like the 100 to 1 ticket that you just have to hold on to.
Yeah. I refuse to cut bait with Dadier. So if I really had to do this, if I ran the Knicks, I would find a way to keep him around, unless, again, like these guys obviously get more time with Pacome Dadier than you and I do. If he's just been unimpressive in practice and the people who do this for a living see him 24/7 and don't believe in the work ethic, whatever, then obviously it's a different conversation. I knew when I had him in the top 10 of his draft that it was going to be a project, and it's only year 2. He's ended up on the team with the worst pedigree for playing guys like him. And so justice for Dadier. Honestly, I hope you guys let him go so he can spread his wings somewhere else.
Yeah, and the noise around like his shooting is that it's really good, and he's huge too. Like when you see him in these G League games, he's like power forward sized. But
yeah,
I think the fact that he's gotten so little exposure, they'd probably leave him available, and he probably wouldn't be picked.
Chris Persianen, if you're listening to this, just chill with the preseason. Pacome Dadier broke the shooting drills stats. Just stop teasing us. You know, if he's not going to play, I don't want to hear about all the swooshes in practice.
Yeah. All right. And Jose Alvarado left unprotected could be a starting point guard for a expansion team. For Boston, it really comes down to protecting one of Baylor Shireman or Jordan Walsh. I don't know if that's that interesting of a debate. I feel like they're both relatively interesting. Shireman's been playing more recently, so maybe they leave Jordan Walsh unavailable.
I really like them both.
Yeah.
This is a team that will have to let a really good role player go. Okay, so we're keeping the starting lineup.
Yeah.
That's 5, and that is White, Brown, Hauser, Tatum, Keita. Obviously
Pritchard
keeping
and
Pritch.
Gonzalez.
Yeah. Oh, that's pain.
Yeah.
I would probably keep Shireman just for the shooting bet. And Walsh, I really believe Walsh is going to be a really good 8th man somewhere for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Walsh becomes an interesting one. Cleveland, also somewhat interesting. You're keeping the core 4 of, we're assuming they want to keep Harden in this case. You're keeping the core 4 of Mitchell, Harden, Mobley, and Allen. And then probably, I think, keeping Strus. And
I think, Strus is hitting big shots. He's back. They're keeping Tyson for sure.
For sure. That's 6.
And then, Keon Ellis has made a pretty good impression. Maybe he sneaks his way in there. Merrill, probably, for just this large sample of reliable shooting, and Dean Wade. It's pain for Dennis Schroeder, Craig Porter Jr. We're just going to get into some names right now, though, that no one wants to hear.
Yeah.
So let's keep it moving. Wait, are we on to Orlando yet?
Not quite. Toronto, we can skip. They're not super interesting, except for like super draft nerds who want sort of a second chance on Grady Dick or Jacoby Walter, maybe. Atlanta, also not super interesting. You can get a veteran shooter in the mold of Corey Kispert or Buddy Hield, maybe. Philadelphia, only interesting in the event that they leave like Paul George unprotected or something because they want to try to get off that contract. But if you're just trying to go past the best 8 players on their roster, it's pretty bleak. Let's talk Orlando because that is one of the more interesting ones remaining.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I was so high on Orlando coming into this year is because I really believe that they're like 9 deep in serviceable NBA players. So they were at the start of the year. They've made some consolidation moves, but Suggs keep, Anthony Black keep, Bane, Paolo, that's 4. Obviously, Franz is 5. I bet they're keeping De Silva 6. Now, I'm 100% keeping Noah Penda. I am a huge fan of Noah Dependable, and then, I mean, they probably feel good about Wendell Carter.
Yeah,
He's probably 8.
or 8.
But I think it's that Noah Penda, Jonathan Isaac, maybe Goga Batadze conversation. Actually, this team is less interesting than I thought.
Mo Wagner,
Mo Wagner. Maybe Franz makes the call on number 8. Says, got to keep my brother around, but
yeah, Jace, if the team really likes him.
For me, it's a no-brainer with Penda. I just really believe in Penda as a connective wing on offense, defensive playmaker, and a guy who brings strength and motor and enough shooting hope that I'd wanna see him out.
Yeah, so it really becomes like Mo Wagner and Goga as like the enticing options on the.
And when I say see him out, I mean see this thing out with him.
Yeah. There's only Charlotte is somewhat interesting actually because they have a lot of young guys on their team. We're keeping the starting 5, which has been the best lineup in the league by the sort of lineup net rating.
Did you see them last night?
I didn't. No.
I feel like I saw Charlotte hit 20 straight threes.
It feels like that when you watch them sometimes.
It was one of those nights where you're like, who the fuck let this team add Kobe White to the mix?
Yeah.
You know, like they just every single remotely open 3 was nothing but net. LaMelo
6 for 8.
We got to give LaMelo his flowers. I mean, it's the one-legged step back 27-footers are fewer and further between. They're still in the mix.
Yeah.
But LaMelo, Con, Miller, Bridges, that's 4. I think this is actually the death toll for Dejan Salon. I think we've seen enough.
Yeah, he's probably getting left unprotected.
I would keep Diabate for sure. He's
part of that starting 5.
Yeah. Kalkbrenner 6 because he's given them good minutes so early.
Kobe White 7.
Kobe White. And then personally, for me, it would be Sion James.
Yeah, I think so too.
Who, by the way, also came in yesterday and like hit his first 3 threes. And I don't want to use like the mogging vocabulary that's become popular among Cretans of the internet, but Sion James is mogging 99% of the NBA. That frame is otherworldly. I like, and when you see Sion James comfortably hitting catch and shoot threes off of a LaMelo or Con or Brandon Miller created advantage, it's just really easy to see the way he fits into this backcourt / wing group as a really versatile, selfless role player.
Yeah, if DK Metcalf was in the NBA, it would look a lot like Sion James, which is it's kind of crazy because he looks tiny
and they have so much creativity and sort of top end talent, offensive upside among their like closing guys that they really can now start to pad around the edges with guys who can accept a role and play really hard, exactly like Sion James. So I think he's a lock.
Okay. So that leaves as unprotected guys, Josh Green, potentially as a flyer guy, Liam McNeely, if a team wants to take a chance on him. He's a rookie right now. Salon, Grant Williams.
Can we just cut to the chase? Like, these expansion teams are going to suck.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of this exercise. I was going through this because, you always hear like, and we can skip the rest of the teams. Washington's the only semi-interesting one, and not really. It's like you can have D'Angelo Russell. Miami doesn't have anyone past 8, really. Or they might have some, actually. I think I forgot to do them. Milwaukee has nobody. Chicago really is like an expansion team right now. Brooklyn, same deal. So if you're trying to win now, the best 5 you could put together is like Cornette, McCain, Jeremy Grant, Duncan Robinson, and Jose Alvarado or something like that.
Yeah. I guess I kind of take it back. Like that's the Kings.
Yeah. They wouldn't be the worst team in the league. If you're, but a lot of this is just going to be kind of second draft type stuff. Like, oh, we really love Jordan Walsh in the draft and we want to get him in our program. And
exactly. The name that was immediately coming to mind was Gerald Wallace, who was this hyper athletic wing out of Alabama, entered the league super young, barely played his first 3 years in Sacramento. And then the expansion draft happened. Sacramento lets him go because Sacramento doesn't know who's good on their roster ever. And he goes to Charlotte and becomes an awesome two-way activity wing. So it's going to be guys like that who emerge simply because opportunity is finally presenting itself.
Yeah. If I was running this expansion team, I think my first pick would be whoever I like more in my building between Thomas Sorber and Nikola Topic, as like, this is going to be our lottery talent guy who just hasn't gotten a chance yet due to injuries and illness in the case of Topic. And he's going to be like the anchor before we make our first draft pick. And then
Sorber, not a lottery guy, but I agree.
Wasn't he 13 or 14? Maybe not.
I think he was 15.
Okay. Close enough. I would probably take Sorber of the two, since there's kind of less. He's like got a little bit more of the new car shine on him, I guess, because we haven't seen him at all. But I think those, if each team was getting a pick from this whole pool of players, I think Sorber and Topic would probably be the top two picks just from like a prospect perspective. And then maybe I want Luke Cornett as like an anchor culture guy.
Yeah. And then again, maybe you get a wild card like a Paul George who's cut loose, but it's unlikely because even the teams that are overpaying guys like Paul George are better off not letting those guys walk for nothing.
Yeah. I think where this leaves me is I don't know how expansion's going to go. I think like we do have a lot of talent in the league, but those teams are really going to suck. And I do kind of see the Bill Simmons perspective of like, we have a third of the league right now that doesn't care to win. And we're going to add two more teams in that are going to be in the mix of those teams and maybe towards the bottom. What is that going to do to competitiveness on a night-to-night basis?
I think there's a difference between saying the players on the worst teams in the NBA are so skilled and so good at the game of basketball. There's a difference between that and saying like there's not enough room for them. Which is something I've said recently. And the more I look at this, the more I feel like maybe there's a ton of talent, but the spread isn't so pristine that we are just going to comfortably add two more full rosters. I don't know. Because it's like you watch even the Kings, who are a complete shit show. Like you and I both really liked Devin Carter. I mean, Malik Monk on his night still looks like, the best player ever if you just drop him into 1980. But that doesn't mean you should add two teams because, again, the Kings are starting Daquan Plowden, who entered my life a few weeks ago.
He just entered my life when you said his name right now. I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
I think like honestly, I think one expansion team could be okay. Two, I do think like we're going to get stretched pretty thin here. And the NBA will adjust, like more guys will come into the league and it's expanding with the different like pathways to the league that are opening up between Europe, NBA, Africa, the way basketball is growing in Australia. But
where's China, dude? It's time for China to give us a couple more dudes. I mean, everyone talks about how massive basketball is in China. I know the population leans shorter, so they probably don't have per capita as many potential dudes, but it is kind of crazy how few legitimate Chinese NBA players there have been, and Yang isn't helping their case much right now.
No, fingers crossed for Yang.
But just to push back on what I said, I do think that there are so many really talented guys who are waiting in the wing just for a chance to play 25 minutes. And not all of them are going to be great with higher usage, but one or two of them will. So who's going to be the Gerald Wallace of this round of expansion? TBD. But like, I just wouldn't be surprised if for some reason, Boston goes Walsh over Shireman because they've had a little more time with him. They like his defense more. And then like Shireman is just like the best shooter in the NBA for a couple seasons. Like we know how good these role guys are, even the ones who aren't playing much.
Yeah. All right. That was the expansion protection. If we I will save these because if we get to the point of like actual expansion, maybe we can bring it back and have an actual draft. But we'll put a pin in that. Let's talk draft because it is March Madness. A lot of the top prospects are still alive in the tournament. Cam Boozer on Duke, Braden Burries, Arizona, Flemings in Houston, Darius Acuff getting a lot of shine for how awesome he's been throughout the SEC tournament and March Madness so far. Since we last talked, I feel like stuff has changed a lot. Because when we last talked, we were like, Peterson's the clear one. DeBonsa's like, we might even have him at 4. Where are you now?
In the words of Tim Robinson, people can change. And I can't believe how much some of these guys have changed in just like a month since we spoke. I can't believe how much my thoughts have changed, even at the very top. And it's just a reminder that I should never talk about a draft until I've really, really sunk my teeth into it. And like we just have a little more time with these guys who are so young and figuring shit out most of the time, like at the top in their first year of college. So I can't believe this. I said a month ago there was no chance DeBonsa would be in my top 2. I have DeBonsa at 1 right now. And I have DeBonsa at 1 right now.
How the turntables.
Jumbo creator, BYU's offensive engine. Obviously, the season's over, but he had 35 in the final game of his college career. First freshman since Trae Young to lead D1 in scoring. Spread, pick and roll, maestro, ISO, transition. He creates out of nothing. And he happens to be 6'10" with a really solid handle, incredible body control, and bend for someone his size. The swing skill is like 3-point shooting consistency, but from an offensive standpoint, like the path to superstardom is so obvious with him. And I mentioned LaMelo. I think that I just need to be more open-minded and less judgmental when it comes to body language, perceived competitiveness, selfishness. Like, seriously, people can change. And AJ DeBonsa's reads as a creator, not for himself, but for everyone on his team, got so much snappier and more impressive. And I feel like he became a better and better teammate. His sound bites. This is a guy who was like making music videos and rapping and talking about how he wanted to be MVP of the NBA before his college season. And now I feel like every time I hear him talk, it's all about the team. It's all about his like desire to like stay in school, get his degree, just like giving shine to his teammates. And my perspective on DeBonsa has shifted a lot. So right now I have him at 1. It's not just him. Obviously, this is like a system of players, and we can get into the Darren Peterson stuff. But
I want to talk to DeBonsa too.
Yeah, talk to me about AJ. Where is he for you right now?
Right now, I've fully shifted, and I kind of was there already, but that this is firmly a top 4 for me, and I really don't see much separation between them. So
yeah,
between DeBonsa, Peterson. Like a lot of the talk is DeBonsa and Peterson is a top 2, and then there's everyone else. Cam Boozer gets a lot of love from people who really like analytics in particular. And Caleb Wilson, who, when I'm in the right mood, Caleb Wilson is my number 1 because whenever that like 4-minute highlight tape, which like circulates on Twitter every couple weeks, comes around of Caleb Wilson, it's just like, oh my God, this is like Giannis in the open court. And like the motor and the intangibles are so great with him. DeBonsa, I really like a lot of what I've seen, and the passing out of double teams I think has gotten better. I don't think he's not a genius level passer by any means, but he makes the simple reads well.
Yeah. When I say spread, pick and roll beast, I don't mean like he's going to be throwing like crazy wraparound passes that you see from like elite NBA quarterbacks. I mean more just like he finds ways to turn the corner and create advantages. I know you have questions about the level of separation he creates for himself. Part of me thinks that's just like, that's star shit, it's not always my favorite style, but there are nights Shea gets his 38. And of course, like in general, Shea is a master of separation, but there are also a lot of nights that Shea is literally just death by a million, like paper cuts. And like one at a time, he's just walking you down and hitting like decently contested mid-rangers. And I feel like it's just clear to me that Debonsa is on a path to being one of the premier scorers in the world.
Yeah, I keep watching him and I'm like, is this Brandon Ingram or is this like a 6'9" SGA? Like, I can't quite tell. And the part of me that wants to put him at 1 is like, he can get to that turnaround from the elbow jumper, which it seems like he hits about 60% of the time, literally whenever he wants. And what if that is just a completely unstoppable move in the NBA, that he can shoot that 12-foot fadeaway literally whenever he wants, and he's going to score on it more often than not. That's the part of, and my favorite comp for him is like a skinny Carmelo Anthony, if that's, and he's going to put on more weight. And Denver Melo in his early years was like pretty skinny, and Melo at Syracuse, I'd be curious to see the measurables between him and Debonsa. It might be kind of similar. But that kind of mid-range diet. Also, Melo was like, his efficiency was boosted by the fact that he lived at the foul line. He was a super physical player. Debonsa's going to live at the foul line too. We're about 18 months away from NBA Twitter melting down over AJ Debonsa's foul drawing.
But a lot of it is legitimate craft and guile too.
Yeah, he's got the shade thing where
there's dark arts. There's also like just an insane understanding of defenders, body weight, momentum. He finds ways to make defenders turn sloppy on his drives and his backdowns.
Yeah, he's got the Shea thing where like he's got the bend, and he's so unorthodox that like defenders get off balance, and usually fouling is a symptom of not being able to stay in front of someone. So you have to like reach and bump because you're off balance or you're trying to get yourself back on balance. So I think where I land is like none of these guys really feel like they're grabbing the number 1 spot on my board. I feel like I still want to give it to Darren Peterson because at his best, the jumper just looks so good. When it seems like he has his legs under him, like the stop, start, shift, get to the rim is so good. And he's long. When he's locked in defensively, he looks really good. But then I'm like, is it injury or does he not get to the rim? Okay, hold on.
So the last thing I'll say on Debonsa, I saw Max Bomback from No Ceilings posted this like really interesting like statistical analysis. Basically, his argument was guys as young as Debonsa with that high volume who show that those touch indicators like at the free throw line just end up shooting passively in the NBA, like historically. Like, and if Debonsa stayed in college for 2 or 3 years, we'd probably see his 3-point touch kind of come together. But
and to not dodge your question, I will say I would probably reluctantly put Debonsa at 1 right now and hope that I got the 4th pick in the draft and could just take Caleb Wilson. I feel like that's where I'm at as a hypothetical GM.
One of the better players in BYU basketball history, Richie Saunders, had a season-ending injury midway through the year. AJ's workload got heavier significantly, and the reads, shot selection, jumper confidence got better with that. And so that is the main reason he has surged for me. And also, again, like I just remembered one soundbite. The other day they asked him, how do you feel about the fact that Arizona's guard Jaden Bradley won Big 12 Player of the Year when, you led the country in scoring, blah, blah, blah. And the Debonsa that I was familiar with a few months ago would have said like, yeah, I think it's kind of BS, but it is what it is. He said he's the best player on the team that's won the most games. And so I thought I had a chance, but it makes sense to me. And like he seems like he's grown up a lot, whereas I have some questions. Let's go to Peterson since you mentioned him. As it stands right now, I have Peterson at 4, and it has nothing to do with basketball stuff outside of his explosiveness is not what it was when I watched him in high school. It's hard to know if that's the hamstring, what the hell's going on with him. But he just isn't, like, the first and last steps aren't quite as impressive as I expected them to look at the highest level of college basketball. Overall, though, yeah, his shots butter. He's got wiggle into his pull-ups. He makes tough jumpers. When he's right, he just looks like the alpha scorer of this class. And also, like I said last time we talked about him, like a man amongst boys. It's crazy that he's 19 years old. But all of this ambiguity around the injuries, the illness, cramping, flashes of takeover offense mixed with these quieter inefficient stretches. I'm just a little confused. And it's hard for me because his sound bites have gotten worse and worse. And I really care about this stuff. Like, he said, he said weird things like, I don't lean on my teammates to deal with hard periods like this. Like, I'm a loner. I handle this on my own. They got blown out in the Big 12 tournament. And he said after that game that he was like laughing after the game and just said, like, we got to shake it off now and focus on the tournament. I know that he loves hooping, but I'm not convinced that he loves being on a team. And that scares the hell out of me, especially when the alternatives are these other like all-time productive college teenagers.
Yeah, this is, and I think where I'm landing on this class is I find it to be a very fit dependent top 4, where it's not like a Cooper Flag where you could just take him and put him on any team in the league and I'm confident he's going to turn into an all-star. These guys, I think it really matters where they get drafted, and they all have the upside to be like multi-time all-stars, all NBA type players. If you throw in Boozer and Wilson as well into this mix, I think all 4 of them have all NBA upside. But it really depends where they go. Maybe for Boozer and Caleb less so, just their ceilings are lower, but I trust sort of the way they approach the game a little bit more. Peterson is such a risk for all those reasons. And honestly, for me, I'm someone who just, I don't pay that much attention to the sound bites, and I'm fully just invested in the tape, but I didn't see his high school tape really. So I'm going off his college tape where he never gets to the rim except for that game against BYU where he was getting there with ease and like dunked on 3 guys. And I was like, I haven't seen this anywhere else in the other games I've watched from Kansas this year. He doesn't get to the rim and his assist numbers are super low. And like when you watch it, he looks like he's looking to shoot almost every time he touches the ball. And some of the assist numbers being low is from some of the surrounding talent at Kansas, but also that Kansas team was fine when he missed time. So like they can't be that bad.
Also, like, I don't know. I don't want to read too much into like him taking himself out. I do in my bones feel like the outside of genetics, the reason that I wasn't an elite athlete is because I was the type of nerd who'd be saying to the coach, it's in our best interest to take me out right now because I have a slight cramp. But the guys who kill and win on the world stage are the guys who are like, shut the fuck up. I'm staying on the floor, even though I'm probably putting my team in danger by playing, you know? But yeah, it is refreshing with all these guys. We were always saying the swing skill is the shooting, the outside shooting. With Darren Peterson, I think it's the playmaking. Because he might have the highest floor of this top 4 because his shot is butter. He shows defensive know-how. He's long. He's got a good frame. But the 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio and just in general, his lack of creating for others is not indicative of the sort of like Shea Ant level, leading man that he's been pegged as, for years now.
Yeah. He's the one who, I'm as a New York fan, I'm a Pacers hater. And the Pacers have traumatized me, I would more say. He's the one who I'm most scared of going to the Pacers, I think. Because like he's such a good off-ball player. He's such a good shooter. And like him and Halliburton as a backcourt could be so terrifying offensively. The Pacers getting any of these guys would not be great for my mental health. But Darren Peterson especially, that's one where I'm like, oh no, they got him.
Because he could easily end up an all-NBA player who finds his joy again, because it's obviously no fun being 19 and having all of social media speculating on an injury that might just be real. But I will say also, Bill Self usually rides for his guys and hasn't been like overly protective of Darren Peterson. There's been a lot of like, I didn't know he wasn't going to play. Like, so there are times
very Kawhi-ish.
There are times where I feel like Bill Self is kind of trying to tell us like this has been a difficult situation for us. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about his teammates, but it might just not be at the elite level that it needs to be if you're going to take him this high in a draft like this one.
Yeah. All right. We can quickly touch on these guys because I want to get to the rest of the top 10.
Right.
But Boozer,
I have Caleb at 2.
Nice. He's the one who I
And
feel the best about. Like if I'm
yeah,
like, he's probably going to go 4, and I'm not going to have him at 4. I think I'm going to have him over one of these guys. I'm just not sure which one yet, but he's the guy who I would feel like he's amazing for my culture. I know he's going to work his hardest. He's ridiculously gifted as an athlete and shows like more skill than you would expect from like, a Kaminga type player coming into
yeah.
the league who's like super athletic, but you don't know about the rest of his game. I trust his IQ. I trust his mid-range jumper at this point, and he's just so athletic that it's
And I
like
just
so
and I just want to
intoxicating.
see what his frame looks like in 3 years, because
Yeah,
like Caleb Wilson is already a monster athletically, and he looks like a guy who's just going to be able to layer on a lot of strength. So,
yeah,
insane upside, still a little bit more projection than polish, but the production is there. It's the projection of skill that I think is unique to Wilson in this group of 4. And but I think for a guy of his archetype, like pogo stick, sort of positionless athlete, I think the floor is still really high because he rebounds with such ferocity. He loves cutting. He loves rim running. He loves the offensive glass. He looks great in like straight line face ups, just being too fast or too big. So yeah, I mean, this guy is an elite interior finisher. He was 72% at the rim with 67 dunks before he got hurt. He was leading college in dunks
he was
as a
college
19-year-old.
Giannis.
Yeah. So the jumper is not like a must for him, but again, here's a swing skill jumper guy. Like the jumper is probably what takes him from an amazing Aaron Gordon sort of ancillary star role player to an incredible sort of like downhill force of nature in the NBA who you can build around. But there's also a path where he just bulks up and he doesn't need the jumper because he's just going to live at the line. And like Giannis, he is well aware that his highest percentage looks, his best advantages are created around the rim. And so you don't have to worry about Caleb Wilson being one of these guys with the athleticism to set the world on fire, but like he's been watching KD on Instagram for too many years. Like he knows who he is and he knows what is going to make him money in the league.
Yeah, I think he's going to fall somewhere on the scale of Aaron Gordon to Giannis, which is a big gap. But like, is he Aaron Gordon? Is he more like Siakam? Is he more like Jalen Johnson? Like somewhere in that like very athletic kind of playmaking forward, but is it a connective playmaker? Is it like a point forward? Somewhere in there, and like a two-way force as well. I think he's going to be in that mix somewhere, but that's either like a star role player or like a top 5 player in the league. So that's very different. Quickly on Boozer, you had him 1 when we last talked, I think.
Yeah.
I would guess you have him 3 now. What has made you cool on him?
I am worried about just kind of how he fits in defensively. I'm worried. I feel like his defense has slipped. I liked him more when I watched him early in the season. Maybe there was some weaker competition mixed in there. He is going to be a below average defender in the NBA. I think he's not big enough to be a 5. I don't love him guarding in space against wings. He's not spastic, but I think that's going to be a bit of an adventure. And I just wish that he was more consistent finishing over guys his size. There's just, I have no doubt that he's going to be in the NBA as long as his body allows, because he's such a smart winning player and an amazing rebounder on both ends. But the scoring upside gives me pause. And unless he's like an awesome 3-point shooter, which he might be, because he's been efficient at decent volume and the shot looks really clean, but I don't think he's going to be like a super dynamic shooter. There are just enough questions that I think I'm swinging on a couple higher upsides, even though Boozer, again, historic like advanced stats in college, like BPM stuff right up there with Zion, Anthony Davis, like some of the best players who have ever graced college, especially as freshmen.
Yeah.
It's more a ceiling thing. When you see him struggling to finish with the left or not getting as much lift as you'd like against guys who are way less physically impressive than the people he'll be going to battle with in the NBA, it gives me pause. Overall, whoever drafts this guy is going to sleep so well on draft night because all the things he does well are going to translate.
Yeah, I think like he was getting the Al Horford comp, and I think we've seen enough of his defense at that point that we that's probably not going to be the type of player that he is. Kevin Love is still the best comp for him.
I was on the Love train early, and I'm sticking on it.
Yeah, and at this point now, that feels more like maybe not a ceiling comp, but like a 85 to 90 percentile outcome for him is Kevin Love. And I don't know what kind of the better version of Kevin Love would be, but
I think that the foot speed and like the hip flexibility, there are things outside of the fact that he's not like fast and explosive that are concerning athletically. And obviously we still love him if we have him in this air in a draft like this one. But yeah, the other three guys in this conversation are way above average NBA athletes. I still think Darren Peterson is going to find his pop again as he like gets more and more distanced from the hamstring scares. And Boozer's the one who, despite how dominant he's been, and statistically it's like a no-brainer. If you just went off the stats, both raw and advanced, like you're taking Cam Boozer 1. He to me presents the most like, is he dominating in college in part because he has physical advantages he won't have at the next level?
Right. It's a good question. Is there anyone you'd put into this tier with these guys, or are they the clear top 4 for you?
They're the clear top 4.
Okay. So let's talk 5 to 10. I kind of want to talk about this guard glut, and I don't know how many of them you have in your top 10, but there's frequently 6 more guards that are mocked as like the next 6 picks. So you have Kingston Flemings, who was, I think, kind of before tournament season, the favorite to be the 5th pick. Houston point guard, speed demon, like automatic paint touch, and probably has the best defensive showing of the rest of these like score first guys. There's another guy I'll mention too. Darius Acuff, who's gotten for Arkansas a ton of shine recently because he's just been scoring 30 every night in the SEC and the SEC tournament and in March Madness. He gets some crazy comparisons. Like Simmons keeps comping him to Kyrie Irving, and I'm like, they don't play anything alike.
Yeah.
But he might just be an offensive savant, and his defense is probably really bad, but he's a small guard who scores a ton and gets a ton of assists.
We
can start with those two
I'm
guys.
Definitely a little lower on Acuff. Not like way low like last year when I was like Jeremiah Fears and Yegor Joman are like, outside by top 20.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quitting on him in that sort of point guard who can't guard is not valuable kind of way. But I have Acuff at 10. Okay. And I kind of see him as like Chris Paul without the defense. And a lot of what made Chris Paul special was the defense. And at that size, you just have to be a bulldog. And it's not just like physical ability that's holding Acuff back. There are a lot of like sort of transition, lack of effort moments with him that concern me. And he also doesn't have young Chris Paul burst. Yeah. He's like, Acuff is an incredible like offensive chess player, just with the way he uses his handle and his gathers and the stop start. He always has defenders guessing. It never feels like even the best defenders in college are speeding him up, but you're betting that he's going to be like one of the 3 or 4 guys at his size on earth who is worth the contract that his offensive counting stats will command. And that scares me.
That's the thing, is like, you can't hand wave the defense, because like to be a guard at his size that's like on a really good team and driving a really good team as one of the best players in the NBA and be that bad on defense, you have to be like Jalen Brunson good on offense, or like Tyrese Halliburton good on offense. And I think he's a really good offensive player. I'm not sure he's that good of an offensive player. I do think like his ceiling comp is Jalen Brunson, where he's not dominating you in like a blow by sense, but he's just so crafty. He's a really good shooter from all areas on the floor. He has risen since the last time that we checked in about draft stuff for me, just because at that point,
Same.
I thought his shot looked a little bit weird. Like I thought his elbow did like a weird thing, but the results are there to this point that I'm just going to trust he's a really good shooter. He's shooting.
He's also been really good off the catch. Like I have no questions about him offensively. Maybe a little bit of finishing concern. A lot of Acuff's finishes in college look like swats in the NBA because he isn't incredibly bursty or vertically gifted, but he also just looks like a complete savant with the ball in his hands, and he's making like over 40% of his catch and shoot threes. So I bet the offense is going to translate. It's hard to hide these guys, and time and time again. I mean, the Wizards just got nothing for Trae Young, and I think Acuff is like sort of tougher and probably a little bit more about winning at this stage. More about winning than Trae Young at this stage in Trae Young's career, but they're guys with better positional size, with better defensive projections, who I'm just leaning toward, and it hurts because every time I turn on the TV, Darius Acuff is putting the team on his back in these like extremely heroic ways.
Yeah, and I feel like the thing with him is like, if you're with this being this bad on defense, even being like an all-star level offensive player, like D'Angelo Russell, if you just took the offensive side of the ball, was probably like at his best an all-star level offensive player. But that could be Acuff's destiny of being like that.
That's a really good one too, because I watched D'Lo at Ohio State and adored him. He was a savant. And Acuff has surprised a lot of people. I think people thought he was more of like a 6'2" shooting guard, bucket getter who really wasn't built to run a team. And his passing, his eye manipulation, the ways he finds teammates and kind of creates advantages for them out of nothing has been a revelation this year. And it's just gotten better and better in the more tense moments for Arkansas. But yeah, I'm leaning toward guys that I think just have higher floors, because if you let Acuff play 30 minutes a game, he's going to put up stats, then you're going to have to pay him, and then he's going to be a salary cap problem.
So one of the guys that I think you're leaning towards, and I am leaning towards as probably my favorite point guard in this class, who didn't get to play in the tournament, is Mikel Brown. I think right now he would be 5th on my board, and he has the size that Acuff doesn't has. He is probably closer to 6'5" compared to Acuff being more of a 6'2", 6'3", which makes a big difference. And he's got long arms too, whereas his wingspan I would bet measures in at like 6'7" or plus.
Hopefully he isn't as thick as Acuff. No. And I worry with Mikel about his ability to add some weight, which I think will be crucial. But he is one of the best movement shooting guards in the class.
And like, if you just see a cut up of his best, you would think he should be in the mix for the best, for like the top pick in this draft.
Yeah.
At his, like all these guys, Acuff, Flemings, we'll talk about maybe Wagler and Boris and Phylon too. They all have like different things they excel at. I think Brown at his best has the full package, where he's got the handle, he's got the wiggle and creativity off the bounce, movement shooter, off the dribble shooter, spot up shooter, creative playmaker. It's really just a question of his best wasn't always there this year, and he was pretty inconsistent. And in the games I've watched, I've probably more heavily indexed sort of accidentally towards his best performances, which is probably why I have him so high. But when you
weren't sweating it out when he was shooting like 39, 27, like his first like 13 games of college. But then he started raining threes. He has always been a savvy ball screen guard. He, like I said, can play off the ball, sprinting off handoffs and relocations, buttery pull-up jumper. And unlike Acuff, I just have a little more hope for the defense with Brown. His athleticism, like his suddenness, really translates sometimes in defensive playmaking. Like you'll see him like leave his man in a really high IQ way to just like blow up something on the other side of the floor. And it's just really refreshing, because sometimes we see these elite vertical athletes, elite side to side athletes who just like it doesn't translate to defense for whatever reason. But like, I see the vision for Brown on defense. I see a path to him being average or at least passable. And then like you said, with the offensive upside, it might be better than Acuff just because of how dynamic he is as a shooter and the fact that he can leverage that athleticism, getting downhill and finishing with either hand.
Yeah, he's got a better first step too. Would he be 5 on your board, or do you have someone else 5?
I have Burries 5.
All right, let's talk Burries because I have him 6.
And Burries is a guy who I had 4 for a few days over Darren Peterson. And I was like, you know what? No, it's a stars league. You just can't do that. Too woke. Braden Burries, think like Gonzaga, Suggs. Different. He's not as explosive, but he's just like
for a sec. Burries.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
I said think like Gonzaga, Jalen Suggs, but like with less athletic pop. But just in terms of being like, I feel like he's like America's guard right now. I don't know how else to say it. This guy is a winner. Every year we try to compare a guy to Derek White because, you know, everyone who loves basketball is in love with the way Derek White plays. This is the guy this year. Like it was, for me, it was Anthony Black a few years ago. It's why I was so high on him. This year it's Braden Burries, who is kind of like either a big one, undersized wing, but I don't really care. I think he's big enough and strong enough and smart enough to play a few different positions and has shown secondary creation, spot up shooting, can drive against closeouts. He's a cannonball in transition.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not as athletic from a raw perspective as Jalen Suggs, but like Braden Burries is so fearless in the open floor that there are moments where you're like, it looks like Josh Hart in the open floor. And I don't really care how he tests at the combine. I know this guy will attack the rim if you give him even like an inch of daylight in transition. And the shot is like extremely sound. And I feel like some of his makes just look like green beans in NBA 2K. He attacks tilted floors. He makes simple reads. And then on defense, like he is just really fun to watch. It feels like he's almost always a play ahead. He is on one of the best defenses in the country and is sort of spearheading it with Krivas at the back end. It's just impossible not to love this guy because of the motor and the two-way effort.
Yeah, he's a good defender on the ball. He's like an amazing defender off the ball when I watch him. Like just a stocks and deflections machine. One of the best rebounding guards that I think I've scouted.
It's Josh Hardy.
It's very Josh Hardy. But with a jumper I trust more, and he's like more purely a guard, I think, than like Josh Hart, who is a Josh Hart. And he doesn't have the scoring upside, like the incendiary scoring upside of the other 5 guys in this consideration here. But I'm the most confident in that he's going to be like a plus defender, not just like you won't have to hide him, but he's going to actively contribute to making you a good defense. And the rebounding, the transition, like there's just so much to like. And he fits the modern NBA so well where, maybe like his best case scenario is kind of a fringe all-star who is like gets some votes because he's the 3rd or 4th best player on a team that's at the top of their conference. But the shooting, the rebounding, the passing.
If I told you Cason Wallace was in this draft, where would you take him?
I had that sort of comp in mind as well. He'd go in the top 5 or 6 probably. I wouldn't take him above the top 4 guys, and then I would have him in the mix with these guards.
Because that is why I can't put Burries above Darren Peterson. Like he just doesn't have that nuanced, like I'm gonna like put a guy in jail, like manipulate like an entire defense with a guy on my hip and putting the big man in like the most difficult positions and making him choose me or the big and throwing like a lob like Darius Acuff with incredible touch. Like Burries doesn't have that on ball level of manipulation you see from a couple other guards in this range. And then part of me is like, who cares? Like there could only be so many like main actors on these teams. And it's so easy for me to see Braden Burries playing a Cason-like role in deep playoff rounds, like right now. I feel like his game is already there. And also, like, Kayson's shooting has kind of ebbed and flowed, even though I'm very much a Kayson shooting believer. Like, I think Boris is kind of a sure thing shooter. It's hard for me to see that shot going wrong.
Maybe a little Nemhard-ish too, although he's bigger than Nemhard.
Yeah.
I was thinking of him on the Pacers next to Halliburton as like kind of an ideal backcourt pairing for him, although I don't think they'd ever take him in the top 4. They're not going to be in the range to take him. And then I thought of how Nemhard fits next to Halliburton. It's kind of that similar level of guy where like he's going to guard the best, like smaller perimeter guy on the other team. He can even size up a little bit. He's going to clean the glass. He's going to push in transition and just kind of make shit happen all over the court. So I agree.
I know you didn't mention Acuff. You mentioned the Brunson comp for Acuff, which I think is really apt. Like, I think if everything goes right for Acuff, he's that sort of game-changing small guard creator, which is awesome. But I think a lot of us would probably take Derek White over Jalen Brunson in a playoff setting.
Depends on the rest of your team.
I'm one of those people, and like Derek White doesn't have the sophisticated handle. So like the things that hold me back from putting Boris way at the top, the more I think about them, the more I'm like, but he does all of the winning stuff, and so who cares about the flash?
He's the type of player that every team in the NBA is looking for. Like he could fit on all 30 teams. I am not going to co-sign the Brunson point, but I am much more confident that Boris can turn into Derek White than I am that Acuff can turn into Jalen Brunson, which is why I have Boris higher on my board than Acuff.
Well said. Well said.
So of the rest of these guards, is Mikel Brown your favorite, or is Flemings back to being your favorite?
So I have Boris 5, Brown 6 right now, subject to change. I have Flemings 7.
Okay. I think I'd probably have Flemings as my 7 as well. I've got Flemings and Acuff right next to each other. I'm still figuring out how I feel about them. The weird thing with Flemings is he just loves that like short mid-range jump shot.
I know. And he's really good at it.
He really does play like a 6 inches taller TJ McConnell. Like he gets wherever he wants on the court because he's so damn fast.
It's a good comp.
And he loves just rising up for that little 8-foot jumper where it's like most guys would shoot a floater from there, but he just like jumps as high as he possibly can and then has kind of soft touch off of it. So I kind of wonder and he's also a pretty good defender. He's like a dogged on the ball. I'm curious. I don't know what TJ McConnell would look like if he was 6 inches taller. He's already pretty good at 5'10".
It's more like 3. It's more like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But with Flemings, he loves getting downhill. I love his attack mindset. Like similar to Boris, like Flemings is a killer. He has risen to the occasion in countless big games this year. He says his favorite player growing up was Derrick Rose. And while he's nowhere near Derrick Rose level athlete, like very few people are, he's a great athlete. And that makes sense to me that he grew up watching Rose because he has these violent, like sort of like, what's the word? Jump stops on 2. And sometimes I watch Kingston Flemings and I really worry about his knees as a guy who's had knee surgery because it's just like the force with which he lands on 2 feet in the paint. It's really impressive. But he lacks the defensive upside of a Boris, even though he really competes on that end. And I think he's going to be fine. Yeah. I kind of think of Flemings as like, what if Kobe White was like an average defender? You know, that's a really good player, and less of the Kobe White shooting fluidity and more options inside the paint with his ability to draw 2 and create out of that and rise up and hit like those shorter range jumpers you mentioned. I just love that too. I just love the fact that he entered with modest hype, this college scene, and became arguably the best player on a title level Houston team. Kelvin Sampson's demanding ecosystem. So his shot is a little wonky, especially the further out he gets. It's like there's this weird sort of like twisty thing at the top. But he makes it, and he's been super efficient all year. He's been good at the rim. He's a good passer. I just think what holds me back with Flemings is there isn't a tremendous level of sophistication with the drives. A lot of it is just like, I am going to hold the ball at the top of the key, and then the second my defender gets remotely comfortable, I'm just going 100 miles per hour to the rim. And that level of blow by zoomage, it just probably doesn't translate as well as I'd like it to. And so I think he has like some of the burst and shooting of a Mikel Brown and some of the defense and competitiveness on the other end as like a Braden Burries, but kind of not elite in any of those areas. And I feel really good about his competitiveness, and that's kind of how he levels out at 7 for me.
Yeah, I don't trust the full package as much as I do with Brown and Burries similarly. All right, let's quickly, I want to touch on the other 2 guards that are consideration here, and then we can throw out like our favorite names that we think should be top 10 that aren't getting that kind of buzz. Do you have Wagler or Phylon close to your top 10?
Close, yes, but not currently there.
Okay, and which do you prefer between the 2?
I think Phylon, because of the defensive flashes. I really struggle. I struggle with Wagler a lot.
Yeah, same.
I don't know what to do with him really, and I think I'm gonna end up sort of playing it safe with him and just having him somewhere in the late lottery in a spot I'd never actually get him if I were in the draft, because it worries me that he hasn't dunked the ball once this year.
Yeah,
it worries me that I just think he is pretty soft defensively, and the shooting is awesome. I'm not sure anything else about his game is like an immediate translation in the league, and a lot of guys can shoot now. I'm more interested in these guards that I think present more NBA versatility than Wagler.
Yeah, Wagler, he might be like a special pull-up shooter. That's kind of the case for him. And he's a good passer. His fans will comp him to Halliburton, which I don't think is right, because I don't think he's a genius level passer in that degree. And Halliburton has like a special level of stop-start as well that allows him to just like get by guys. I don't think Wagler has that level of first step and sort of decel that Halliburton has. But the pull-up shooting is no doubt really special. He probably had the most impressive individual performance of the season too, with his Purdue game, which was just like an insane heater from a shot making perspective. But then I watch him against Michigan, and Michigan's point guard Elliot Cadeau, who's listed at 6'1", 180, and that's listed. He might be shorter than 6 foot, was putting Wagler like in the basket on drives whenever he wanted. And Wagler is like 6'5", something like that. And he was just getting bulldozed by this 6 foot guy. And, Cadeau's like kind of built like a running back, but still you'd like your guard to be able to provide a little bit more resistance against a guy who's not even going to be in the draft this year. Or if he is, be like maybe a late second round pick.
I don't think he's getting picked. Yeah. Wagler, he's 0 for 1 on dunks this year as a 6'7" guard. He has a below average shooting efficiency at the rim. He hasn't been good in mid-range on floaters. It's really just elite outside shooting.
Yeah.
And without those other tools, it's giving me slight like Yegor Zemin vibes. Like this is like not the same player type, but this is a really skilled, positionally large creator. I'm not sure what else he's offering. Obviously, like his shooting is something that Zemin didn't show at BYU, and if he's just an elite off ball sniper, like he'll be able to play off the ball. But I just don't like drafting off ball guys who I think are going to be sieves on defense.
Yeah. And then Phylon, I really like Phylon. I keep wanting to rank him higher than I think I'm going to end up ranking him. And he might be the guy who is like my Jaime Jaquez this year, where I'm like, I really liked him. Why didn't I have him in the top 7 or whatever? Because at times he's the one who does kind of look Kyrie-esque at times with his combination of his handle, creativity. And he has one of the best as a righty. He has one of the best left hands I've seen from a college prospect. Like his left hand finishing is crazy, both on like sort of little scoop floaters and around the basket. The handle is the best in the class that I've seen. And his general like creativity.
Maybe Acuff, but yeah, he's up there. Acuff.
They're sort of different style. Acuff is more like kind of pound the rock, sort of like hard crossovers, whereas Phylon sort of got like, I feel like more of the creativity gene.
I mean, Phylon has the Dennis Schroeder gene.
Yeah.
He just, I'm not sure how he's so thin. He's not incredibly tall. And yet with these weird micro movements, these jabs, these body feints in the paint. He is consistently creating advantages and finishing over bigger guys. And this year, Phylon, year 2, the shot really came. Last year, he was a role player, very important part of Alabama's team, but playing off of Mark Sears and a couple other vets they had. And then this year, they gave him the keys to the car, and he exploded. And the three-point shot came. His defense took a step back, in part because of all the usage on offense, the workload. But Phylon is an extreme competitor. He is fully tatted in Hollywood depictions of supervillains. And I think he really enjoys, sort of like Schroeder, he enjoys going into hostile environments and talking to the fans and making shit happen. And I think he's got that competitive gene that we want on our teams. It's just a size question. Like, if some guys just translate. Like some guys like Schroeder just present value for a long time because despite the frame, they're just able to create separation. They're competitive enough. They're subtly strong in ways that are hard to measure. And Phylon might have that, but I think Phylon's going to end up in my top 10 because I've just gone through periods of really adoring him. And I like that he's a showman in the most competitive, confident way. Sort of like Flemings and Braden Burries, like, has shown up in the biggest games this year. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. Phylon is the one who's going to move up for me. Wagler, I think I'm going to end up being significantly lower on.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in lockstep on these guards. Because I have Brown, Mikel Brown 1, Burries 2. I think you flipped those 2. Just not on my board, just like in ranking these guys. And then I have probably Fleming slightly ahead of Acuff as like my 3A, 3B, 3 and 4, and then Phylon 5 and Wagler 6. And it sounds like you're basically the same, but with Burries ahead of Mikel Brown at the top.
I could easily end up with Phylon above Acuff because I think when Phylon scales back down in the NBA, he's going to be a way better defender than Acuff.
Yeah. All right. In our last few minutes, who are the guys who are not getting so much top 10 buzz that you think should be? And I think we might agree on a couple guys.
Cam Carr, Baylor.
I haven't finished him, but he looks very Keyshawn Georgie to me.
He has incredible verticality. Like, I don't even know what his vert is, combined with the fact that he's like 6'5" with like a 7'2" wingspan. Insane wingspan. Live athlete, great length, real shooting, and just projects as like a really good roll wing. And maybe if his handle gets a little bit sharper, he can be more than that. Really good rim protection. Like, he's like a 6'5" guy with an incredible block tape from his year at Baylor. I think he averaged like 1.5 blocks this year, and they're like loud, like help side, comes out of nowhere, challenges someone at the highest point. He played his first game. He played his first 2 years at Tennessee, barely played, transfers to Baylor, and explodes. That concerns me a little bit, like that he couldn't get minutes in Tennessee. And then like on this 500 Baylor team is when, he's able to get his counting stats, but I feel like he does a lot of winning stuff. And I feel like the fact that he has been such a reliable shooter, late bloomer guy, he's your classic. Like, I think he was 6 foot or 5'11" his sophomore year of high school. And now he's like learning to play in the body of a legitimate NBA wing. But I really like him because the shooting and the defensive IQ is the floor. And then sort of like a really poor man Cedric Coward, like maybe he can just leverage those tools and develop the handle and become more useful on ball.
Yeah, the length is insane, and he's a really pure shooter. Like, he's got one of the better looking jumpers in this class, just from an aesthetic perspective. It's really quick and compact, and also drew a ton of fouls when I watched him, which I think is good for his sort of, and he looked really good from the free throw line too.
You're not going to see 6'5" guys dunk this easily. Like, he's listed at 6'5". He plays like a 6'7", 6'8" guy because his arms are absurdly long and he's got crazy bounce.
Yeah, I haven't finished my process with him, but he will almost certainly be in my lottery. And where do you have him right now?
I have him at 8.
8, okay.
Then a couple other names. I mean, you and I both love Thomas Haug.
Yeah, let's talk about him. He was gonna be one of mine.
He's one of the most plug and play players in this draft. Probably the easiest guy, like in a lot of ways, to picture just like helping a good NBA team right now. Because he's a connective forward, has shown some real pick and pop ability. His shot looks like it's going to work out. He makes the extra pass. He's a violent secondary driver, and everything he does is quick. He's got size. He's got touch. He makes decisions quickly. And like that, I just can't get that Duke game out of my head. Like they go into Cameron indoor, hostile environment, and he is just a bull in a china shop going to the rim in the first half of that game. He's been the tone setter for a really good Florida team pretty much all year. This was his season to step up as the junior. Like last year, he was kind of the athletic, fun, live body sophomore. Now he's the junior who's taking on more usage, and he really like took that responsibility in stride. He went from a key reserve to first team All-American conversation. It's just he's one of these guys who turns 23 before his rookie season in the NBA, and that is going to scare a lot of people who like have their advanced projection systems and doubt, these older guys. But look at Jalen Tyson, look at Jaime Jaquez. Like there are always going to be a few of these guys who are late bloomers and are really good NBA players. I think Haug is going to be one of those guys at the very least, because he might have the greatest motor in the draft.
Yeah, he's so tenacious. And just like 6'9" and can dribble, pass, shoot, defend, and rebound. Like it's really hard to find those guys who can do all of those things at least a passable level. And I think he's pretty good at all of them. The shot, like it looks a little funny, but he's very confident taking threes. And I think his free throw numbers are pretty good too. So like I trust that he's going to be able to shoot. And just, plays with a ton of heart and tenacity. I was surprised to see his rebounding numbers aren't great, because when I watch him, he feels like a great rebounder. But I think I'm going to have him pretty high as well. Just that skill set at 6'9" is really hard to find.
I think he is a really good rebounder. Like if you look at Aaron Gordon rebounding stats, sometimes you won't be wowed, but then you watch the game and you're like, he gets every ball you want him to get. And also he's playing with Congdon and Chinyelu, like two legit bigs who are gobbling a lot of those rebounds. But I just think this draft has a lot of really interesting guys at the top, and then becomes just an absolute Wild West for me, where I'm struggling to find some sure thing role players. I don't think it's actually like the deepest draft. I think it's good in this range, but it's not elite. And I just keep coming back to Haug as like at the bottom of my top 10, a guy I want to bet on. Just also intangibles. I know it sounds like boring white guy shit, but you just hear the best stuff about his competitiveness. I think he's all about the right stuff. And if the shot is real, I don't see how he doesn't stick for a long time.
Yeah, same. My guy who I want to shout out as like potentially getting some top 10 look for me, and I think you like this guy too, is Morez Johnson from Michigan. And Michigan has gotten a lot of coverage in terms of their 3 draft prospects, particularly Yaxel Lendeborg, who's like even older. He's going to be well over 23 on his draft night, maybe even close to 24, but can look like a do-it-all wing. But my favorite prospect on Michigan is Morez Johnson. He's physical bruiser, built like an absolute statue. He had a picture go viral a few weeks ago of him dunking on Cohen Carr, which was labeled the most disrespectful dunk of all time because of the freeze frame that ensued. Just an elite rebounder. Like even, you said Haug plays with Condon and Ruben Chinyelu, so he doesn't get as many rebounds. Morris Johnson plays with Adaimara, who's 7'3", and
Lendeborg, who's a really good rebounder.
And still Johnson is getting like a double-double every game. He just like vacuums in rebounds on both ends of the court. I love the fact that he shoots 80% from the free throw line and looks really confident there. And I've seen him stretch it out to 3, and I watched him like hit a couple in some of the games I watched. In the Illinois game, he hit at least 1 or 2. I think he'll eventually be able to be a stretch 4 who is just like secondary rim protection, because he's got these long arms and he's big himself. He's like 6'9", built like a truck, and just is going to get every rebound. And he's one of the guys where like the tankathon sort of like stat pluses and minuses don't tell the whole story, but it can often be a good thing when it's just all green pluses for a guy's stat profile. And he is that guy where
love
it's
the
just
green pluses.
Yeah,
I actually, just to push back, like similar to what I was saying about Colin Murray Boyles last year, I think Morez Johnson is a 5.
Yeah,
I think he's got
too.
the size, his frame and his statistical profile is oddly similar to Kentucky Bam Adebayo. And I think there's just enough offensive flashes to buy into the idea that Morris Johnson could blossom into a completely different offensive player in the NBA. I wouldn't bet on it, but at the very least, you're getting a guy who's doing all of the like Dylan Cardwell stuff in Sacramento. Like he's gonna do the big man stuff. He's willing to do the dirty work. And I like the way he rolls with force. I think he's a lob finisher in the dunker spot. And he's going to be able to guard a lot of people. Like he moves so well for 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan and that jacked. If the jumper comes, that's gravy, but I think he is a really, really serviceable role player, even without it.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of like Isaiah Stewart with him. Maybe some Taj Gibson as like a kind of 4 or 5, just like really high level role player. I mean, Taj Gibson's still in the league. He's been in the league like 17 years. So I think, yeah, not the star upside necessarily. Bam outcome I'd be pretty surprised by. I don't see him developing that level of like playmaking at the next level. But I do think I trust his touch, and the 80% from the foul line does do something for me. So him and Haug, I think both are going to end up in my lottery.
I am with you. I have Morez right now at 11. And then at 12, a guy that I'll just give you a couple sentences on. I love Alan Graves of Santa Clara. We went from...
Is he coming out?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. He'll be able to go wherever he wants if he stays. He'll end up at Duke or Kentucky or Arkansas. But Alan Graves came out of nowhere. I think he was a 3-star prospect. Plays at Santa Clara, the school that produced J-Dub a few years ago, Pods a couple of years ago. And he is, for me, sort of the Noah Penda of this draft. And I shouldn't talk about Noah Penda too much because I'm pretty sure most of our listeners have no idea who he is. But this is just a smart, physical, really efficient, connective 3, 4, 5, depending on how you want to use him. I love him. And I love how hard he plays. I love how he crashes the boards. And I like the fact that he makes threes. Sometimes I watch him and I'm like, how are you not French? Just the way you play, just you're all about the right stuff. He's not great at getting from point A to point B in terms of like he makes threes, he finishes at the rim. He's rarely like getting to the rim with the ball in his hands. But that's okay because I project him as an awesome 3-and-D bruiser.
Yeah, I haven't started looking at him yet. My only exposure to him was that first tournament game against Kentucky, which is just devastating for him because he had his shot that was like his one shining moment shot. And then Oweh hits a half court shot.
Oweh
to send it to OT, and it's lost to history. But yeah, I think we can wrap there. We've done a pretty beefy pod. This is all sure to change in the next by the next time we do draft check-in, but it's always good to get a snapshot and just give listeners a little taste of what's to come for some of these teams picking in the lottery, where especially these guards, I feel like 2 of these teams are getting an all-star guard, and then 2 of them are going to get someone who's just like maddeningly inconsistent.
And it also feels like the draft conversation is even more interesting with all the talk of expansion. Like these are guys that might fizzle out early and that be great second draft guys. These are also guys that are pushing out the players that, your expansion team might get a chance to salvage. So the draft is definitely a piece of the whole expansion system.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. If you made it this far, we'll be back soon. Peace.
Boom. All right. Boom. Is there